Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Dan Griffin and I'm Support Revolution's Head of Marketing. I'm going to be online with you today to introduce our speaker, ask him the questions that are on everybody's mind with the SAP deadline, and also here to answer or forward any of your additional questions to him. But just some housekeeping points before we begin. You'll notice that we have muted everybody automatically to ensure we have minimal noise disruption throughout the webinar. But there is a text chat box on your screen that you can use to send me messages, which I will answer or forward to our speaker if you have any questions you'd like answered in this session. You'll also find in that window we've placed a few additional resources that you can download. One is a white paper that accompanies today's session. It gives all the details of what we're covering today, and I highly recommend downloading it for future reference. The other download is a fact book that gives you information on what third-party support is and who Support Revolution are specifically, outlining the pros and cons of why you would consider moving from Oracle or SAP support to us. Obviously, I'd recommend downloading that as well. But our subject today is SAP, or more specifically, SAP's support deadline, its history, and your options in the run-up to it. This topic has been a pressing one for years as SAP's marketing and sales teams compete with not only SAP's traditional competitors, but also SAP's own user groups and customers over whether their product is fit for purpose and whether organizations should upgrade now, later, or not at all. That's why we've asked our Technology and Innovations Manager, Ken Metcalfe, onto this webinar to discuss not only the history of the SAP support deadline, but also what are the options actually available to organizations like yours in the run-up to the deadline, and each option's pros and cons. With over 20 years experience in SAP implementations and consultancy, Ken is an expert on all things SAP and works with Support Revolution's customers to advise them on how best to manage and optimize their SAP portfolios, including advising organizations on what to do about S4HANA and the looming support deadline. Besides that, Ken and his team also work to onboard new technology and systems into Support Revolution, ensuring that these solutions are integrated fully into our delivery teams. Ken's role is vital to ensuring that Support Revolution remains up to date with current technologies and that we can continue to provide innovative solutions to our customers on a daily basis. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Dan.
So before we start talking about the deadline and the options available to people around that deadline, I suppose the first question I've got for you, Ken, is what even is S4HANA in the first place?
Right, S4HANA is SAP's replacement for their existing SAP ECC systems. It's unlike the ECC systems in that whereas those could be run on any particular database you chose, Oracle or SQL Server, S4HANA only runs on SAP's own in-memory technology, HANA. The S4HANA product, however, comes in multiple flavors. The S4HANA public cloud. Now this is true software as a service. With this model, you don't get to say when it's upgraded. SAP control that. You have a limited range of options for your modules within this. Very much is the case you're going to have to adapt your business to match what SAP are offering. It is the cheapest of these options because of that. It's run purely on a subscription service, so you're paying so much per year for either per transaction or per user. There's multiple models of how you finance this to SAP. When you stop paying them, When you stop paying them, you no longer have access to be able to use this in the future. It is purely software as a service. Their private cloud. This is still 100% managed by SAP in regards to software. However, you have some control over when the new versions and new functionality are put into this. You also have the option to put in some modifications to suit your business. However, SAP charge more to support those because it makes them harder for when it comes to the upgrades, so they charge additional fees depending on the number of modifications you've made to the software. The third option is much more like the original SAP systems. This is the on-premise option. With this, you can customize it as much as you like. However, going forwards on that, you are responsible for upgrading it. You're responsible for the costs of that. So it's consultancy costs, downtime for the business, testing time, etc., to make sure that your modifications fit in with this. It is also the most expensive option overall in terms of licensing.
And it's interesting that you've split those out like that, Ken, because when you see the marketing from SAP around this product, it's almost like they cherry pick different elements of all three of those, but brand it under the one area. Which they talk about public cloud, but they seem to pick the features from all three of those and put it under that one flagship. In my mind,
that's very true. I think SAP are trying to be all things to all people on this. Whichever way you look at it, they will say, "Oh yes, we have that facility. We have that. We have the ease of it being software as a service with the flexibility we've been able to customize." Even though they are actually talking about very different products within that one branding.
And I find it quite ironic that S/4HANA is very much SAP's flagship cloud product, but there's an on-premise version.
Yes, SAP are actually describing themselves as being the cloud company powered by SAP HANA, and yet one of those versions doesn't even have to be anywhere near a cloud system.
And I suppose the other initial question I should be asking you, Ken, is why now? Why are we talking about this right now?
Because SAP have actually put a deadline in for their non-SAP HANA products. So for all of the traditional software you've been running, SAP have said after 2027, after that date, they will no longer provide support for your existing SAP systems. They have interestingly said they will, if you want to pay them even more money, support your systems through to 2030, but that will be very much on a best effort basis, of just keeping you going. So systems you've got which already cover all of your business needs, SAP are just pulling the plug on them, simply really, I would say, so they can sell their new product.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Ken. So I suppose based on what you've just said, the next thing to talk about would be the deadline itself. So where did it come from and why have SAP implemented it in the first place?
Well, the deadline certainly is being implemented not for their customers' benefit, it's being implemented very much for SAP's benefit. There are a number of reasons why SAP want to bring in a deadline on their existing systems. Currently, if you're running your SAP systems on Oracle, then 15% of your support fees will be going straight to Oracle. If it's the same with SQL Server, except going to Microsoft. With it being on HANA, SAP get to keep that money because it's running on their own technology. They also simplifies their support model. They're not having to support different versions of this. If they can get everybody onto running on the same version, then they need less people to be able to support that system, and it makes it quicker for them to make changes to it because they're not having to actually put those onto more than one version. SAP first brought a deadline out many years ago, I think back about 2010. The deadline first came out when they said they would support their systems until through to 2020. Then, due to various things, including lots of user group pressure, they extended that to 2025. Now it's to 2027 or to 2030 if you want to pay them some more money to get extended support. The reason why this has been going back like this, as I said, is pressure from user groups, from their customers who have got systems which work for them, which do what they want to, and they don't feel that they should be forced down this route of having to change just because it helps SAP's bottom line.
So do you think the deadline's working?
I think from the fact they've extended it twice already, it isn't working for them. There are still I think over 50% of their customers said they weren't prepared weren't going to start a project to upgrade to S4HANA in the next couple of years. And considering how long these projects take, because they involve a lot of business re-engineering, for a large organisation, that deadline, which was at 2025, was already becoming unachievable. So I think it's perfectly likely SAP will be forced to extend this deadline again in the future.
Okay, so that's where the deadline itself has come from. But what's actually going to happen when that deadline hits? What happens at 2027 or 2030 for SAP customers who are running these older versions that are going to get axed?
Very, very little. The systems will still continue to work. This isn't anything like the Millennium Bug where we hit a point in time and they stop. These systems will continue to function as they do at the moment. The one thing, what will happen is SAP themselves will no longer be supporting these, and they won't be delivering any new software for this. Now, the new software, they haven't really delivered anything in terms of enhancements for the ERP systems since 2016 when they released Enhancement Pack 8. Since that point, they've still been charging the same fees, which are meant to be both for support and for new innovation, but no new innovation has come along. What they will stop doing, and when you will need to consider if you're still using your systems past that date, is legal changes. For example, where extra fields are required to be reported to income tax authorities in a particular country, SAP will stop delivering those legal changes. However, there are a number of options that you can use to actually be able to adjust those systems so you can continue to use them for many, many years after the end of the deadline.
So what you're saying essentially is that the deadline is not a deadline on the products. The deadline is a deadline on support for those products.
It's SAP turning their back on their own products, effectively, at that deadline. The products will still work. There's nothing in those systems at all that will cause any interruption in functionality after that deadline.
Given the facts of that deadline and the realities of what will happen at 2027 and 2030, what are we actually seeing in the industry? What are people doing in regards to the deadline?
I'm not even that sure that a lot of people are even though SAP have had this deadline for a number of years, we're even fully aware of this because 50% of companies aren't even planning on starting a project to move off their current ERP systems within the next 2 years. Those that are doing so, well, there have been a number of high-profile cases in the press of S4HANA failures in projects. A lot of this is really trying to shoehorn your existing business into the rather more limited functions that are available within S4HANA compared to the ECC6 systems we all know and love, where you can really adapt them fully for your business. There's also been a real squeeze on skills. This is a new product SAP are trying to push forward. So they're trying to move many, many thousands of customers across, and there are a very small number of people who have the skills necessary and have completed these projects. So the rates for getting in external consultants are very expensive. There's also quite a long training exercise required if you're trying to do it with your own staff. And a lot of companies, where they have a stable SAP system, whilst they needed a lot of consultancy level skills to initially implement that, over the years they've probably lost those, or people have retired, so they probably don't have the skills within their own companies to do this. This is going to this has led a lot of customers to actually start thinking, what else can we do? And this is where third-party support companies come in, because really, if you have a stable system that you just want to keep able to use that system going forward. So the third-party support company is able to actually give you that skilled consultancy level knowledge, but done on the basis of maintaining what you've already got working going forwards, rather than trying to completely re-engineer your business.
Okay, so given what you've just said, what are the options available to organisations facing this deadline?
As far as I see it, there's 5 options that are available on this. You can comply with SAP's wishes and move to S4HANA. You could move to a competitor, for example, perhaps Oracle Financials or Salesforce or something. You could do nothing and just ignore this completely. You could build an in-house team to support your SAP systems for you, or you could move to a third-party support supplier. I'll go through these in a little bit more detail in a minute because there are some serious cons to a lot of these options. Okay, option 1, move to S4HANA. This obviously has some pros. For instance, all of SAP's new functionality, new features, etc. will be developed exclusively for S4HANA. You're going to stay up to date on software regarding legal requirements. Depending on the flavour of HANA you go for, you'll be getting automated updates going through. That can reduce the cost of operation going forward. It does have some cons, however. It's a lengthy project to actually transform from your existing systems to this. 18 months is a reasonable figure for most smaller organisations, going up to many years for a larger organisation. And depending on the flavour you're going for, you may be reducing the functionality that's available to you. For instance, if you take the public cloud option, then you're probably looking at just taking across your data and having to re-engineer your business processes to fit. If you're looking at moving to the on-premise version, then you can actually bring across your existing business processes, but then you're looking at a much longer implementation time, and also it's going to cost you a lot more money to support it in the long term. Option 2, move to a competitor. The main reason for doing this, I suppose, would be that you avoid SAP's 2027 deadline. And you can also choose software that matches what your business currently needs. However, you are looking at a complete re-implementation. This is going to take a lot of months of work to take the data out of your existing SAP system and load it into whichever system you choose. You also are looking at this complete skill set change. You may currently have an SAP support team, but if you're moving to Oracle Financials, then what you really need is an Oracle Financials support team. So that's a lot of expensive retraining or rehire or hiring of staff to do this. It's also going to be disruptive of your business flow. All of your staff at the moment know how to use your current SAP system. They will not necessarily know how to use an Oracle or a Salesforce replacement. Option 3, do nothing, the wait and see approach. There are some pros to this, I suppose. There is potential that SAP might move that deadline back again. And you are keeping your options open. However, you're still going to run into the same problem, which is at some point you are going to have a system that you need to change, that you need to change it for legal compliance reasons, or that you then later decide actually you do need to want to move to S4HANA or a competitor, except all you're doing is giving yourself less and less time to do this. And if we get a rush of people doing this towards the end, you're also looking at seriously increased costs just due to basic supply and demand of the market. Option 4, build an in-house team. Basically, you could decide that you don't need any external company supporting your software, that you're going to put together a team within your company who's got all of the skills to be able to support your software and to be able to do that on a 24/7 or whatever basis your business needs, and is going to be able to justify itself through your auditors and make all the legal changes that are and licensing compliance that are required. You might decide to do that. Personally, I wouldn't. I think that would probably cost you more money than any other option we've discussed here. But it's possible a company might want to choose that. Option 5, switch to third-party support. There are quite a few pros to this one. One of the key things on this is that it's cheaper. It's on average at least 50% cheaper than you're going to be paying SAP at the moment. You're also not shutting off any return to SAP in the future. In some ways, it's quite. It might be best to just move to a third-party support now, whilst we see what SAP are actually going to do. You're going to be saving a fair bit of money that you can use into that transformation to the HANA project in perhaps 3-4 years' time. In between those times, a third-party support company will fully, as I say, support your systems. They support them 24/7. They actually give the same guarantees regarding SLAs that SAP do. So you'll still have your P1's instance being resolved on time to be able to satisfy your business. Also, legal changes will be developed by the third-party support company for you. For instance, if you need new fields to be able to send to HMRC, that's a patch that will be delivered by the third-party support company. However, it will be tailored to your needs. So we won't just be randomly patching the whole of your systems, which can cause lots of effort required in retesting, but patching the specific bits that are required to comply with what your business needs. The cons to this are that you won't get any new versions of software being delivered. However, as I previously said, with SAP last delivering a functionality enhancement for EHP 8 in 2016, you're not getting that from SAP at the moment. And going forwards, if we currently have a 2027 deadline on this, that's going to be 11 years you will have been paying SAP to support their own software without them delivering one piece of functionality enhancement.
So Ken, given what you've just said, what would be your overall recommendation for anyone considering what to do for the 2027 deadline?
Well, switch to third-party support, but then again, I would say that, wouldn't I? But I think it makes the best options. You're not closing off any routes for the future. You're maintaining your systems being legally compliant. You're saving a lot of money. I think it makes, faced with this uncertainty of SAP at the moment and where they're going on HANA and how long they're going to be supporting the systems, I think saving some money and actually going to, but with a guaranteed level of support just makes perfect sense.
And I suppose it means you can ignore the deadline completely because you're going to stay supported. You can move in 2031, as long as it's...
Exactly. We'll support you for however long you wish. There is no cut-off date with our support.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ken, for that really interesting session. So if anyone would like to know more about this, we have put together an in-depth guide covering everything we've discussed today, from what S4HANA is and the pros and cons, to the history of SAP's deadline, and all of the options available to everyone in the face of that D-support deadline. If you do want a more in-depth conversation, though, on any of the subjects we've raised today, you can contact us via phone or email using the details on the screen now. And finally, thank you to everyone who signed in today to listen to our speakers, and thanks again to Ken for your time. Unfortunately, we're out of time in this session, so any questions that you have sent us in will be answered separately via email in the next 24 hours. We have answered the majority of questions that have come in as part of the session, though, so I'm pleased about that. Remember, you will be sent a recording of this webinar to your email, and we recommend downloading those accompanying white papers and guides in the system window, like I said at the start of the session. We hope everyone has a great day. Thank you very much, and goodbye.